You're listening to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, episode number 65. Welcome to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, a show anchored in reality to help you create a balanced life where you enjoy both your work and your life, because you don't have to choose. I'm your host, Cecile Ferry, a corporate executive turned coach and working mom. This is your place for insights, advice, and tools to optimize your career direction, balance, and confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing this week? I hope you're traveling well. I hope you are enjoying this year, not feeling like it's going too fast and you're not being stressed out at the prospect of the end of the year coming so soon. I really hear a lot of people saying, we're already in September. Oh my God, this year is flying. I don't feel like that at all. I feel like I have been putting one foot in front of the other and really built this year month by month and had so many lessons, so much experience already. So I really hope you're also having that richness of life and you're enjoying every single week that you get to live. Wow, that was a pretty powerful way to open this episode, wasn't it? So I know it's been a few weeks since the last episode. The truth is, first I got bombarded with work when I got back, but happy work. We talk about that today because I got to catch up with all my clients after I returned from holiday. So I loved that. I had 2 weeks of solid booked out schedule. And then it changed a little bit and I found myself in a bit of a post-holiday blues. So just to show that I'm like you, I have my ups and my downs and my productivity did dip last week, but I'm on the way back up this week. And I got inspired, as I always am, to talk today about our zone of genius. Like, what an exciting topic. And the first thing I want to say, we all have one. That's like the best news. You may not know what it is, and my hope is that after listening to this podcast, you will be in a much better place to know how to find out what this zone of genius is for you, at least get on the journey. So don't freak out if you don't know. That's exactly what we're about. But just sit first with the concept that you have one. You have a gift in you that is so special and that's there waiting for you to find. And I'm going to talk about this today. There's no pressure to find it at a certain age in your life. Don't feel like you should have by now. Everyone is different. You can take your whole life to find out. And for me, it took me years. So let me start with reading you a section from Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, where she talks exactly about that zone of genius. Look what she writes. Look, I don't know what's hidden within you. I have no way of knowing such a thing. You yourself may barely know, although I suspect you've caught glimpses. I don't know your capacities, your aspirations, your longings, your secret talents. But surely something wonderful is sheltered inside you. I say this with all confidence because I happen to believe we are all walking repositories of buried treasure. I believe this is one of the oldest and most generous tricks the universe plays on us human beings, both for its own amusement and for ours. The universe buries strange jewels deep within us all and then stands back to see if we can find them. So I myself quite fascinated by finding the zone of genius for myself or finding in other people. I just find it's really so close to our life purpose. And I was noticing, reflecting on people that inspire me the most are people who have found their zone of genius and are living and breathing it in their job. I was reflecting on the weekend seeing Serena Williams living tennis and how I find that inspiring that she honed it on her zone of genius for so long and did so well in it, and it gave her so much too. I was watching the other day a documentary on David Foster, who was a music genius, and he just found his zone of genius from a very young age and he built an extraordinary career over it. And he's just created songs that are amazing for the entire world, right? So this is what I talk about when I talk about zone of genius. And this is what we are going to be delving into today. So we're going to talk about what it is and what it isn't. We're going to talk about why it can be hard to find it. And then what you are all expecting, how you can go about finding it. And I'm going to give you some questions. So you may want to grab a pen and paper to take some notes. Are you ready to uncover your zone of genius? Let's get into it. So what is your zone of genius? Let's start with what it isn't. So there are different zones within you, and you can write that down and complete those for your own knowledge. It's really interesting. So each of us has a zone of incompetence. So they are the things that we are really not good at and cause us stress. So if I look at myself in my business, it's things like doing SEO, doing complex web things, doing my bookkeeping, or if I look into my normal life, for instance, gardening is clearly in my zone of incompetence. And then you have your zone of competency. So in that zone, you are good at things, nothing excellent, but you are good at it. It's often tasks that can be a bit mundane for you, repetitive. They don't require a high level of skill. You need some skill to do them, but it's not super high. And these are things that if you don't do them, you may get some anxiety. So for me in my business, it's things like posting on social media, doing basic graphics, emailing my clients, providing the right customer service, or in my home, it's doing the cleaning, for instance. And then the next level is the zone of excellence. And sometimes that's the one people confuse with the zone of genius. So in the zone of excellence, you are great at what you do and you do it easily. But it usually doesn't light you up, or at least not light you up for long periods of time. And it could bore you, or it could become really monotonous for you. And it's often the zone that we're in our jobs. And that's the zone that gives us money because we create value and we get paid for that. So what is usually recommended is that you try to outsource what is in your zone of competency so you can build yourself some time to put in the other zone, because you have to split all your time across all those zones. So clearly in the zone of incompetence, you need help there. You can't do it, or you need to teach yourself how to do it, and it may not be worth your time. The zone of competency, even though you can do it, it's usually something you should look at to delegate, because that will free you up, even though you can do it. And then the zone of excellence is typically where you would tend to work, earn money, but it also is a great zone for you to teach other people, because over time you will get a little bit sick of it, or you may start feeling sluggish in that zone. So teaching it, passing it on to someone else so you can continue growing and eventually moving as fast as possible into your zone of genius. So the zone of genius is what you are brilliant at, and really what you are meant to do at a soul level. And you may not be very spiritual, but I believe in that. I believe we all were brought on this planet to do one thing, exactly what Elizabeth Gilbert talks about. We need to unearth what is that thing that we have and follow that roadmap and do it. And then when you do that, you're both extremely productive. So it doesn't take you a lot of time to generate extraordinary results. And you're also deeply satisfied, deeply fulfilled, deeply engaged. So you have that mix of actually producing amazing results and loving what you do. And I hope as you're listening to that you may be living in your zone of genius. You may be like saying, yes, Cecile, that's exactly what I am experiencing these days. And if you are not in your zone of genius right now, don't despair. You're probably like 90% of us, and that's okay, because it's not that easy to discover it. And it's a process. It's a journey for your life. It's like the Holy Grail. Or as Gay Hendricks calls it, it's the big leap. I will link in the show notes both Elizabeth Gilbert's book and Gay Hendricks' book, because if you're interested in the Zone of Genius, I highly recommend you read The Big Leap, because about half the book talks about it. And he says it's your big leap in life. So a leap is something huge. It's not just, we'll be hopping from job to jobs, but that is kind of the big thing in your life. So there's no pressure, and it will come to you when you are ready. And it's not something that unfolds overnight. But the problem is we tend to stay in our zone of excellence. And Gay Hendricks said we tend to rust in it because we are comfortable. And it's because that's the way the world works. Most people stay in their zone of excellence because it pays you money, you're great at what you do. But you know what? Pretty much all of us go through cycles where one day we start feeling like, you know what? This isn't really me anymore. And these are 100% of the clients I get in career coaching. It's because they've been in their zone of excellence for a while, and they're kind of rusting in there, and then they know that is not it. Because when you're in your zone of genius, you would never, ever live it in your life. More people stay in that zone of excellence. Even just look around you, in your surroundings, your close friends, your family members. How many of them are in their zone of genius versus their zone of excellence? When you're in your zone of genius, I know you've heard that before, you are in the flow, and that means that you don't feel like you are working. But I don't want it to sound like it's super easy and you're doing nothing and just on the beach. Like, actually, when you find what it is and you are in that zone, you will want to work because it's going to feel easy. It's not going to feel like work, but it is work. It's pleasant work, if you like. And it's not like laborious, hard work that doesn't fill you up, that doesn't engage you. It's work that actually gives you fuel. And another thing is when you're in the zone of genius, you kind of bend time. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Time expands, or you lose track of time. And I haven't found any other activity in my life that does that. So to summarize, that zone of genius is the Holy Grail, and part of the challenge is to identify the difference between your zone of excellence and your zone of genius. But stay with me, we're going to talk further about that. So before we get into the steps to work out your zone of genius, let's discuss a minute, why are we here? Why is it difficult, and why are so many people not living in their zone of genius? It's not that we don't have enough coaches that are recording podcasts like mine telling people. That's probably one factor, educating, but there are others. What tends to happen is that treasure chest that Elizabeth Gilbert was talking about is there from birth, so to speak, but often our lives take turns or get shaped in a certain way that we bury that we don't let that come out as it probably naturally should because of multiple things. Because of our parental conditioning. Our very well-meaning parents can be directing, influencing, all the way to controlling, for instance, our career decisions. They're going to make recommendations. You should do this and you shouldn't do that. Also, it could be that our feelings with them were not validated, or we were not free to explore our interests. And again, they didn't mean it. They were trying to put us on a track. But by doing so, we didn't learn how to explore what was really unique to us, what we really cared about, what made our blood flow, because maybe at the time that wasn't a key priority. And maybe there wasn't that awareness within parenting to unearth that from your children. It was more about clothing them, feeding them, giving them a good education. but we live in a very different world today. And if you have young kids, like that's what it is about, is just do not restrain them so you can see their natural gifts come to light and they can see it themselves. Otherwise, like all of us, they will have to work them out later. Secondly, if we've had low self-esteem growing up, or especially as teenagers, look, we all do, but it's the extent to which you had it. If you had particularly low self-confidence and low self-esteem, then it's probably harder for you to think about your zone of genius because you feel like there is nothing you are that great at, you just aim lower, or you just don't think you have that amount of gift. And you may still be carrying that today, and it's okay. Have compassion for yourself. But I'm hoping that this conversation can help you believe, at least start there. Begin to believe you have that unique gift. And that's just the right place for you to start at. So self-esteem can really bury those talents and those zone of geniuses. Or also we have our dear society that puts the pressure on us, especially when we get to the end of college and we have to work out what we want to do. And I don't know if you remember that time. For me, it was pretty traumatic because you had to have an answer. You had to know. And that is not how the zone of genius works. It's a process, and quite often it takes a lot of life experiences to get to. So I think many of us just end up choosing a direction because we are pressured to do that, and then later on have to do the work to find out what makes us unique. So that pressure and not having a lot of time and not a lot of tools to work out what is the right answer for you, I think is an impediment to finding our zone of genius. And then there's the good old social validation. What are people thinking about what it is that you want to do? People might laugh at you. People might say that it's silly. People might say it doesn't pay enough. Or other people will say, yeah, you should do that because that pays well. So culture has all those norms around what's acceptable for a job and for a career that gets in the way of unveiling and revealing to ourselves our unique, authentic zone of genius. And it takes guts, seriously, and quite often that's why we do that work halfway through our life, because by then we've built the confidence, we've built the integrity, and we care more about making ourselves fulfill than pleasing everybody else around. So those things don't help us, unfortunately. Culture, society, our parents. So very often the zone of genius and what we really care and what did light us up has been relegated, pushed down to really lower layers of ourselves. And that's why I'm saying it's here for you too. It's dormant. You just need to find a way to bring this back up to the surface. Okay, so now we got to the section everyone wants to hear about. How do I find it? Let me start by saying that it's kind of tricky. I won't use the word hard, but it's tricky because if you're doing it well, your zone of genius is usually innate in you and it's usually unconscious. So that's why it's hard for you to see it. Sometimes other people outside of you can more easily see it. That's why you have to listen to the right influences, those people that can spot something unique about you. We're going to talk about that. It's that interesting ambivalence because it's something that feels so natural to you and that really fulfills you so much, yet you're kind of oblivious to it because it's so part of you that you don't even easily see it. It's tricky, isn't it? So it's exactly what Elizabeth Gilbert talked about. It's a trick the universe has played on us. So I'm going to give you some steps to uncover that zone of genius. And heads up, it's more like peeling the layers of an onion to get to the bottom of it. It's not a just bing, ding answer that will come to you within 5 minutes after listening to this podcast. So how do we find it? And I just want to say what we're looking for here is a unique skill. We're not talking about values. We're not talking about strength, which are our character traits, like our personality. Here we're talking about something we are really good at. So I'm going to give you 3 pointers. The first one are cues from your childhood. So write down, grab your journal. What were the things you did by choice as a kid? What were some of the initiative, the things you put your hand up for, the things you did in your spare time when you were a child? Or what were you known for? So here we want to things that just, automatically came. They were innate to you. What were the subjects or the classes you were drawn to or you were really good at? And it doesn't have to be academic. It could have been arts or things like that. And in your childhood, look at what were the defining moments, the moment where you really felt exhilarated, where you loved what you were doing, when you were in the flow. What were your dreams? So these are all inputs that you need to write down and reflect on, and they're going to fit into finding your zone of genius later. So that's input 1, cues from your childhood. Input number 2, cues from your work experience. And it doesn't matter whether you've worked 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's all been really good data. What were you particularly good at? Especially things that came easily to you. You can look at it in your childhood. You can see what took longer for other people to master. And it wasn't the same case for you. Same in the workplace. What set you apart from others from a skill point of view? What were the tasks you particularly enjoyed? What were the things that brought you the most success? And be really specific, not just, I was good at analyzing data. Like, what about it? Was it some software? Was it the analysis? Was it the commentary? Like, what part was it? You really need to dissect to the skills you use within those tasks. And here, we are not talking about the things you were great at from an excellence point of view. I'm not talking about the things that made you a great performer. I'm talking about the things that naturally from the heart were easy and you were great at. So it's the next level. We're not looking for the things that made you an A-star performer, because I won't say everybody could do that, but we're looking for the next step beyond that. So that's why we talk about it being innate and setting you apart from other people. So those unique things that you did in your work experience. So that might take you time to revisit all your jobs and the different environments you've been in and think back to what felt like flow, to what was easy for you, to where maybe you have lost track of time or you would have done it any time of the week. So that's cue number 2. And then the third input, which are the typical focus questions we use in coaching when we think about zone of genius, is really finding what is happening when you are in it. So when you experience those zone moments, i.e. when you lose track of time, when you are deeply engaged, I used to say, for instance, when you forget to eat or if you forget to go to the bathroom, right? You are in that zone moment, then what are you doing? And just go about your life and seeing that. Because for me, I see it and it confirms it. And it's when work doesn't feel like work. So ponder that question. Give it time. Take a week, 2 weeks to think about that. Observe your life. Because that's where the gold is. That's where the answer lies. So and then you take all of those and those answers, and you're going to have to distill from that new zone of genius. They are not the zone of genius itself. The zone of genius is a unique underlying capability that sits under that. If you like, those things are a manifestation of your zone of genius. They're all pointers, but the zone of genius is the underlying capability, the underlying skill underneath. So you have the themes in all your responses to all the questions I've just given you, but they are not the answers themselves. In The Big Leap, Gay Hendricks talks about it being like Russian dolls. So you got to open it and go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. And that's why it's not an easy process. It takes skills. And I'm just attempting to give you a framework here so you can make a start on your own. But it's not a 5-minute one-stop shop answer. So you got to dig deep and you have to find a way to articulate it. It needs to be really unique, really specific and quite narrow It needs to light you up, and it needs to be innate, like super easy. You do it with your eyes shut. So I know you might feel like, oh, that sounds too hard, but give it a go. Use the questions and don't stress if the answers don't come. I think you have to be quite analytical about it and list all those inputs and see what are the common themes. How can I connect all those dots based on different things that look unrelated, but they all share something in common? That's what's sitting underneath. And it manifests in different experiences and different stages in your life as well. But it's always kind of there when you are feeling great, when you're enjoying yourself and you are in the flow. So obviously I was reflecting about mine when I was recording this podcast, and you must be wondering. I've done the work of the Russian dolls and articulating and really dissecting based on all my jobs as well. And for me, but I think I'm still trying to articulate it really well, and I hope it will make sense for you. But when I am at my best, the exact thing that I'm doing is finding the keys to unlock a situation. So in other words, I am a solver. See, this can be channeled so many different ways, and it does sound quite specific yet general, right? But that's the unique skill, right? You can define it really with precise terms like that. So for me, it is about connecting the dots. Like I see a situation and I literally see what is going on and how to solve it. And this makes a lot of sense to me, and it may not make sense to you, but for me it makes sense. I see it. And for instance, I was living that through my childhood because I was an avid reader of Agatha Christie, and I read every single book when I was pretty young, all in French, and then I started to read them all in English. And I was just fascinated. Why? Because in every single book, I was grabbing elements and I was working out before the end who the murderer was. That was just my zone of genius, and I reveled in that. And I do that these days in my coaching job because I listen to you guys come up with your situation, and I know what questions to ask. I can't explain to you. It's my zone of genius. I will know where to look, and everything makes sense to me. I know. I see it, and I know where to take it next. And I solve it for you. I help you solve it. I show you the way. And that's what makes me a great coach, because that's my zone of genius. That's one way to use it. I could use it in building a fantastic course to solve a particular problem. And that may happen in the future. So there are different ways, if you like, to package and to use up your zone of genius. But for me, it's about taking the knowledge, the points, the dots, and I see straight away the solution, and then I convey it and I give it to you. So I am that solver, right? And being a coach is bang on in my zone of genius there. And I know I've always done that. And even in my part-time job as a customer researcher, I do the same. I just find insights that unlock a situation, that find out the potential, something better, something that can be done. And this I cannot explain to you. It's super easy to me, and I can do it all day long. It's my zone of genius, right? And it's taken me 42 years to get to that point and to find out. So don't stress. You've got time, and yours is going to be probably very different, but that's what makes this world so interesting and rich. And we should all care more and discuss more about our zone of genius than talk about drama and the weather and complain about our jobs and things like that. All those people who complain or compare themselves or envy other people, it's because they are not in their zone of genius. So now you have the method, so go and make a start. And don't stress yourself, and be open to work through this process for however long it takes for you. So there you have it, my friend. Now you know all about what is the zone of genius and what it's not, and how to go about finding it for yourself. So follow the breadcrumbs, like look inside the Russian dolls. Feel free to let me know through social media how you're going about it, or if you want to work on that in one-on-one coaching, it's the perfect use of our sessions, because really, seriously, what could be more important than that? And that leads me to ask you, is your genius present in your current job? Are you living in your zone of genius? And are you living enough in your zone of genius? Or is it just glimpses of it? Some of us might be completely absent. Some of us, it might be 20% of time. But you want to add that level. You want to grow that to 50, to 60, to 70% of your time. Because that's what life is about, right? Wherever you're at, get on the journey of discovering or up that level of genius in your life. Because once you know, you can be really sharp with answering opportunities and offers that come your way. Because if is it your zone of genius, yes. If it's not, it's for someone else. And you can say no, or you can delegate and recommend it to someone else whose zone of genius this might be. So it's a compass to make your decision. But especially for your career, if you spend a lot of your time at work, like most of us do, that is where you need to aim for. So I hope I have given you the inspiration, the hope, and now you have the roadmap to answer that for yourself. As usual, if you need further help, I'm here. Feel free to reach out to me. So I wish you all to get on with your life, living more and more in your zone of genius. Have a beautiful week. I will speak with you soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to find out more information, you can visit my website at careercatchup.com. There you will find blog articles, free resources, a self-study course for your career direction, and ways to work with me. It's at careercatchup.com. I hope to continue to connect with you and support you. Talk to you soon.